everybody, Justin with the Three Geeks podcast here. I have Jerry Carita with us. How you doing, Jerry?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Glad to have you back. I think the last time we spoke was Cicada Samurai. Hopefully that did well.
It did. It did.
Good. Awesome. But you're here to talk about us another Kickstarter. It's the Cloak Room. I think issue 2, which is pretty fun. It's an anthology series. You want to tell us a little bit about it? I was reading up on it. It seems pretty cool.
Yeah, sure. So it's an anthology series, like you said. It's spawned from Scott Snyder's Substack. He does a Substack. His newsletter is called Our Best Jacket, and through that he runs a writing workshop and a writing class for the people in his newsletter. And so he has all these students who check in every month and listen to his classes. He'll talk about the process and collaborating with artists, and he'll bring on special guests and talk about specific topics. And so everyone everyone in the class who's interested in really seriously taking what they're learning and turning it into a comics career. A lot of them have worked on scripts and stuff like that. So this anthology series started 3 years ago when a group of 3 of the students got together and put together a volume of a collection of 18 stories from writers in the class. One of them actually was nominated for an Eisner. It was called The Beekeeper's Due. A year later, a completely different group of 3 students in the class did a volume 2. That book was called Tales from the Cloak Room. It was a little bit longer. And about almost a year ago now, I took it over along with my partner, Veronica Howell. We're co-editors, and I publish it through Thorny Comics. And we decided that rather than do a third volume where we had to have to get 18, creative teams on the same page, we said, why don't we do like 5 to 7 at a time and release it as a quarterly thing and kind of keep it going all the time. So that's what we've been doing. We're on issue 2. The first issue was on Kickstarter about 4 months ago. I think it funded in late February or early March. We delivered those, month and a half ago, and
awesome.
Now we're back with 7 more stories.
That's awesome. And do you want to kind of give a brief overview of those stories, or want it to be a total surprise for folks? Because I have their little summaries next to me. But
yeah, well, no, we could do that. So we actually haven't finalized the exact order of the stories in the book yet. But we know what's going in the book. We just haven't finalized what order they're going to be in. Let me actually pull it up to make sure I don't forget something myself. I'll start with the one I know for sure. Matt Salisbury, who probably apart from me and Veronica has been the person working the most across the whole series. He did a cover for this issue. So if you're looking at the Kickstarter, the red curtains cover, that's Matt Salisbury's cover. He did the cover on the first issue where it's like the dude reading the book and his mind is being blown by it. And he's an artist. He's the thing is, Scott's group is mostly writers, and he's one of the few people who is a writer, but he's also an artist. So he gets a lot of action. He's actually got 2 stories in this book, in this issue. So one is all him. It's called Kiss of the Sea, and it's about an abusive sailor who meets a siren, like an old school mermaid, and gets a little bit more than he expected. It's kind of a cautionary, think like Grimm's fairy tale, kind of violent fairy tale kind of a thing.
Yeah, just your description reminds me of the movie The Lighthouse with
oh yeah,
is it similar maybe?
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely similarities to it. Matt's really awesome, and I've been watching online. He posts a lot of stuff, and like we're in a couple of Discord groups together and channels together, and he's very heavily influenced by Jeff Lemire, and so the art you can see on the 1-page preview there. It's like
watercolory.
Yeah, he uses watercolors and crayons.
Oh, cool.
Does like a combination. It's like mixed media, basically. So that's one story. He wrote and drew that story. So and I think he did the original lettering. We might have had part of it relettered at some point because of like margins or something. But he's fantastic, and that's all him. That story. The next one, let's just stick with Matt. We have one called Abandon All Hope. It's about a demon in corporate hell, except corporate hell is actually hell. And I remember reading it and laughing because there's a 2-page spread where, you know, like we're doing it right now. We're on like a little, like, it's not Zoom, but we're on a video chat. You know, and so he's in this, it's a demon who's kind of a misfit in hell because he doesn't like his job, which is to torture damned souls. And he's not really good at it. He doesn't really like it. He's always playing the music that isn't that bad, or like he's squirting them with a lemon. Like, it's not really torture. It's like random stuff. But there's this 2-page spread that really made me laugh because it's him in like a Zoom meeting with his boss and a bunch of other demons. It's very funny. And yeah, so that's a good one. That's Matt did the art on that one. JB Hawkins, who was one of the editors on volume 2 of Tales from the Cloak Room, our predecessor, wrote the story. Very, very funny. And Lyndon Radchenka, who's been part of the class since the beginning, and you know, he has had his work like featured by Scott in the class a few times. He's the letterer, and he's like a really great letterer. He's also a writer. He's very good. A lot of cool people. We got one called Welcome to the Dark by Anna Papige. She lives in Australia. We paired her up with this artist, is a buddy of mine, Les Lyndon Garner. Les was the artist on another book I did called Reign of Dracula. And Tobin Rassicot is the letterer. That one is a woman who, you know, is out for a run one night, and she kind of sees something in the shadows, and it's like she kind of figuratively and kind of literally in the story descends into the dark recesses of her own mind, and interacts with all of her demons and kind of gets to know them a little bit, you know, one night. So it's like a little, you know, insanity kind of a story. It's a lot of fun though, and it's beautiful. Les is a really gifted artist, and Anna has a way of, like, without being shy, just kind of digging into trauma and you know,
really important subjects.
Yeah, it's raw. You know, it's pretty raw, and Les is just a great artist, so it turned out really good. The next one's Pineapple Macho by Ryan Crow, Jimmy Cousage, who's actually going to do a cover for our next volume, our next issue, and Micah Myers is the letterer. And Ryan is a lot of fun, and he wrote this really fun, like, hilarious story that is sort of like, it kind of lives in an even more twisted Roger Rabbit kind of a universe. So it's this hard-boiled detective who is this big hulking, you know, dude, and his name is Pineapple Macho, and he lives in a black and white world, and there's a disease that he caught. Someone gave him this disease to try and kill him, and it's called cartoonism. And so basically what happens is, from the inside out, you gradually become a cartoon character until eventually you are absorbed into a piece of paper like a comic strip, and then you're dead. That's how it kills you. So he's trying to solve the murder of his own murder before he is too much of a tune to do anything.
That's fun. Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah,
it's a cool
it's a lot of fun. It's very, and again, it's a little very Roger Rabbity, but it's also like even more twisted. And Pineapple's just like a great, just like the character's name is Pineapple. It just, again, makes me laugh every time.
Sweet name.
Yeah. We've got a story called Cat and Mouse by Dan Brady. Ross Nelly Salazar did the art, and the letters also by Tobin. This is this one's another black and white, but it's like shaded. You know, they didn't want to do color on it. It is a mystery. It's based directly on something Scott said in class. Scott did a class about mysteries, how to write a mystery, and he said a really basic way to set up a mystery, to kind of practice writing a mystery story, is you have two characters who are up to something, and there's a third character trying to figure it out. And so Dan went home, I believe, that night and outlined this story. And then we worked with him on it, and you know, it's really nice. It's like a fun story about this amateur podcasting journalist who kind of is sticking her nose a little bit where it doesn't belong, or where some people believe it doesn't belong. It's a great little, again, kind of a cautionary tale, but also a fun with a little bit of a twist. It's a twist ending, which is cool. And then this one's been one of our favorites since the start. This was almost in issue 1. And it moved to issue 2 because the artist, the writer who's also the artist, decided he was going to work digitally, and we talked him into kind of working freehand, because he was working digitally to Rush for us, and we were like, we want the story to be as good as possible. We don't care if it's in issue 1 or issue 5. So take your time, whatever's going to make it. I want you to pick it up and look at it and be proud of it. So he decided he was going to go freehand for a lot of it. I think he inked on digitally, but it's really great. It's about a young boy in a zombie apocalypse. He's left by himself by his parents, which is insane already. And he's kind of helped along in survival by this zombie that shows up like a few days or weeks into his being alone in his house.
Is it Home
And
Alone with zombies? Is that how we're?
it's a little bit of a Home Alone with zombies. Yeah, it's a little bit of a Home Alone with zombies. They developed this really cute relationship. It's not the sample page isn't this page, but there's a page where the kid has like a little pop gun, you know, like a little old school cork gun, and he stands at the window and he's behind a window and he shoots the pop gun and it's a little cork with a little string on it. It doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But the zombie suddenly is being playful and like pretends to get shot and fall over, and then they're both laughing. It's a silent comic, so there are no, you know, there's no speed, there's no talking in it. So the whole thing had to be kind of portrayed, you know, through the art, whole story. And Will did a great job with that. Will Paul wrote and drew that one.
That's awesome.
Those are our 6 stories. We have 6 stories in this issue. They vary in length. They total is, I think we have about 70 pages worth of comic material. The book, when it's published, I actually have the first issue here. It's published as a little kind of thin, perfect bound book.
Yeah.
You know, so it's this was the first cover by Siraji.
Sweet. Yeah.
And it's very cool. It's got a nice thick cover and beautiful. Yeah, so I'm very, very proud of the way it comes out. Like, it has a good hand feel. You know how they say food
that's
has
important. Yeah.
Food has good mouth feel. It has good hand feel. This has good hand feel.
That's awesome. So, okay, all those anthology stories sound super sweet. Now, is this now? If I join Scott Snyder's classes, would I be able to jump in and get into one of these anthologies like sooner than later, or do you have like a backlog of anthology stories that you're trying to work through, or how do you?
So when we first started doing this, Veronica and I told everyone in the class. What's funny is, I think his newsletter goes to like 20,000, 30,000, like a lot of people.
Yeah.
They don't all know that we exist, you know. So there are people who are active in the Discord. There's a Facebook group. There's a couple things like that. So it's probably about, I would say, like 1,500 total people that know we exist in the group, in the class, and probably 100 total are active enough to take part. But the answer is yes. You can, if you joined today, the Substack, our only rule is that you be an active member, participant, you know, subscriber to Scott's thing. And that when you write your story, we ask each writer to kind of tell us how something in the class inspired this story or inspired them to write their first comic or something like that. That's the unifying principle, the organizing principle, the whole thing. It's just tie it back to what did we all take from Scott and put on the page. But yes, the answer is yes, you can do it. When we first put the word out that we were doing this, we got like, over the course of a month, we got, I think, 83 submissions from 56 different writers. Some people submitted 5, you know, five stories. What we did was the ones that were further along, we looked at first, and then we started looking for issues 2 through 5. We started looking at just one-page pitches. We got a lot of people that came to us with just a pitch, no artists, no plan, no, like, just here's my idea. I worked on, you know, my log line and my synopsis, and that's it. And you know, so we've been working with people on that and kind of helping them pair up with an artist and make their thing happen. And then Veronica and I just kind of pick the ones that we think will pair nicely into a story, into a book. So, you know, the first this is a wide array of you know, genres in that one. The first one had 1 or 2 more sci-fi stories. There's a story about a biker gang queen taking over her own gang. There's actually another zombie story, a sort of comedic zombie story instead of a heartfelt one. You know, there's one about a stalker. There's one about an astronaut or a scientist who ends up in what he thinks is the afterlife, and he gets into an argument with the first being he sees that he assumes is God, and they get into this big argument. You know, there's a sci-fi one about like how we are relying more and more on AI, and sort of, you know, how that can be scary, and another cautionary tale. There's one that's literally about anthropomorphic dinosaurs that can jump through different times and dimensions and steal technology from other places, and
time traveling dinosaurs.
Time traveling and interdimensional dinosaurs, and they live in a place called Washington, BC. Get it?
Yeah. Oh man! Oh, that's awesome.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
A little White House there.
That's awesome.
So, you know, we basically, like, we have a few we know we want to get to sooner rather than later. Our third issue is going to be a holiday issue. We decided we were going to do that. So this one's going to fulfill in a month, and then by late September, early October, we'll have issue 3 going, and with Christmas stories, Passover story, Halloween, all different holidays.
Oh, that's awesome. That's super cool.
Yeah. So we've got a bit of a backlog, but
it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, we kind of talked to about 8 or 9 or 10 people for each issue, and then different reasons people fall off. They disappear on us. They, life happens. They need to not. Almost everyone in the class is doing this as a side hustle or just like a passion project on the side. And some of them I think will probably publish this one story and then that's it, and they'll be happy with that. And some of them really want to get into comics and do this for a living. So either way, it's fun that we get to be there, the first stop on their ride.
Yeah, it's a cool way to ease yourself into the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Is there a thought to make you and Veronica like the crypt keepers of this anthology? You know what I mean? Like digitize you guys to be like
funny.
You know what I mean? Just like,
yeah.
However you want that to look, but it might be fun if you guys are curating it. You guys are the ones turning the TV on and showing
it's funny, like when Matt's cover that he did for this issue, the red curtains with the creepy guy reaching through.
Creepy.
Yeah. So we talked about it. We were like, should we develop a kind of character? And the problem is, what actually as we're talking about it, what would be funny is doing it with Scott, like turning Scott into some sort of an avatar in the book. Because he's really the organizing principle in this whole little universe he put together. But we thought about it. The problem is we're not really like I always go to a horror movie place with that, like you want the guy to be a creepy character, and the stories are not all scary. They're not all Halloween or horror stories. So it's hard to kind of pick someone that makes sense. The Crypt Keeper wouldn't make sense. You know what I mean?
Maybe like a Guy Fawkes character that changes masks depending on the theme of the story.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. We gotta. Why don't you join the Substack and you can be part of the team?
Sure. Yeah.
Join the team. We'll publish one of your stories.
Have you written? I'm not much of a writer. I mean, it'd be cool. I mean, I'm down to try it, but I've never. No, not ever. But I would do it. Yeah.
All right. You come on board as a editor and work on the edit on behind the scenes.
Please, yeah, I'd love that. That'd be great. But no,
it's Guy Fawkes character is funny.
Yeah, because for this you could do, I don't know, like one of those like old school like doctor's masks with the long nose and like.
Oh yeah. Those what are they? The plague masks, right?
Yeah. You can just like work if it's like I don't know. There's plenty of masks out there in the world that we could figure out different ones to use. But that's awesome. I'm always curious whenever I look at a Kickstarter. How did you come up with your like reward tiers and like, and the retailer? I'm not sure. I've seen a retailer copies a lot when I go through Kickstarter. Is that something that's kind of specific to this? Do you get a lot of bookstores and stuff reaching out and saying, "Hey, I want like a bulk version of your comic book"?
So when I did my first Kickstarter, I did not have a retailer tier, and my mailing list included a handful of stores, and so I was surprised because I think of stores at the time. This is 2 years ago now, but I thought at the time of stores as would think of this as sort of like competition, finding them online. But what I found was that a lot of them were really into supporting especially local. So a lot of the people in the class work in comic shops. So if you have a story and you work in a comic shop and you have a story in an anthology, that comic shop will buy.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, exactly. You sell them in your own store, and a lot of them just have good relationships with their local stores. And so the local stores I found were reaching out to me and asking like, hey, do you have a retailer tier? Like I can't pay $15 for 10 copies, each for 10 copies of the book. I'll never make my money back. So we just decided we were going to do a really heavily discounted retailer tier. I've done that on all my Kickstarters since. And, you get like 2 or 3 that reach out, sometimes more. Sure.
That's awesome. That has to feel good. It's always cool to have something in a brick and mortar anywhere.
Yeah. And like I said, like I did a lot of research because we wanted it to work for them. We didn't want to lose our shirt doing it, but we wanted to like make sure that the price made sense for them. And since we're doing such a thick, it's not like a 22-page issue, it's like a
Yeah.
3 times as that size. And so we're charging, on the Kickstarter, we're charging $15. But if you're a retailer, you get 10 of these for $67. You're getting them for basically half price, a little more than half price, like 45% of the cover price. So they could sell them for 10 and make their money back. It's got Scott's name on it. Obviously, he has a very big direct market fan base. People will actually slow down and look at these in stores. So, yeah.
Does he have a hand in like the reviewing of the final issue since his name is on it? Like, does he have like a do you have like a path with him or anything like that?
Yeah. So Scott, as part of the Substack, a lot of people in the class can actually submit their scripts to him, and he'll give them notes. So I did that on one of my Kickstarters for Cicada Samurai. Actually, Scott read the script and gave me some feedback. And for a lot of the stories that we publish, Scott, like, we're giving notes as editors, but Scott also gives notes, and obviously whatever he says, we say, yeah, do what he says. And then we talk about it with the writer, and but they so he reviews some of the stories, not all the stories. We send him everything. He is, as I'm sure you've seen in the news lately, he is very busy. So we don't always hear back from them, but he and his assistant Tyler's very responsive and does his best to get us in front of Scott whenever we really need something.
Sure.
But every Kickstarter so far, Scott will, tweet us a couple of times. Will mention us in a newsletter. Will mention us during a class, and get us, help us like get some eyeballs on the project. So he's very supportive of it, and like I always say that we will keep doing this for as long as Scott allows us to use his name.
Sure. Yeah, totally fair. Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's super cool. Is there one where you want to get into, like, one you want to create, and like, because now you're like kind of the behind the scenes guy that's helping curate this thing and being an editor. Is there a story you're trying to cultivate for anthology book number 11 or anything like that?
I've actually got we decided very late in the game that we were going to do this holiday issue. So Veronica and I were kicking around ideas because we got a lot of submissions pretty quickly, but we got like 7 submissions, and I think 2 or 3 of them have already kind of fallen off. So right now we have like 5 stories, and we were saying, is there one that one of us wants to write? So I actually might write a Christmas story.
Oh, cool.
Really twisted, horrible Christmas story. But so I have one idea for that, and then Veronica and I both have like tossed around ideas that we just haven't gotten around to. But I think like come issue like 4 or 5, we might start to look to put some of our own stories in there too.
Sure.
What we really like doing about, like I have sort of my own outlet to write if I want to write. I do a couple of other projects through my Kickstarter campaign and through Thorny Comics. I write for television, so I have a lot of outlets for that. What I like about this project is that I'm not a writer. I'm the editor, and it's a completely different part of your creative brain. And I really enjoy that. I find that really rewarding and kind of fun, like helping someone else create the best version of the thing that they have in their head.
It kind of scratches that teacher itch a little bit, right? And maybe a little bit.
Yeah, a little. I mean, a lot of the people in the class. I'm actually a good deal older than a lot of the people in the group.
Sure.
A lot of them are. In fact, some of the editors from the first 2 versions were in college when they did it, and they were going for their creative writing, master's degrees and stuff like that. But I'm 44 years old, and I've been a television producer for 25-ish years now, and so I have some experience in like, writing. Yeah, writing for writing for TV. I was actually surprised. One of the things that surprised me when I first started listening to Scott talk about it, a lot of the references he uses and a lot of the ways he talks about writing for comics is the same way that you write for television. It's there are nuances that are different. Like TV has act breaks for commercials. Comics has page turns and issue breaks. They have slightly different. You're building up to a different moment and trying to get people to stick around and turn the corner and keep watching or keep reading. But otherwise, a story is a story. He talks about a story arc. He lays it out as if it's a screenplay. You're doing, 6 issues of a comic book to do a little story arc. That's 200 and something page. That's 120 to 150 pages. That's a screenplay. And so he lays it out sort of the same way, and so I think a lot of the storytelling I've done in my career kind of applies to this. And so, but that's what I enjoy with this. I get to talk to these guys who have these ideas and just kind of ask questions and tell them what jumps out at me and discuss it. And, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I did want to pick your brain, Lisa, but how's Thorny Comics going? Like, I think the last time I spoke to you with Cicada Samurai, it was either just kicking off or was it pretty new at the time? Like, how is that going for you? How are things with that?
Yeah, it's going pretty well. I don't have like a master plan with it yet. I think what I did this project, which is an ongoing thing that I'll do until Scott tells me to stop. I have Cicada Samurai. The next issue, the first full issue of Cicada Samurai, is going to hit Kickstarter later in the fall.
Cool.
The pre-launch page is actually up right now, so if you look up Cicada Samurai, it's
Yeah.
#1 is on there right now. So I'm working on that. I did. That's like that. That I think was my most successful solo project because I
Awesome.
didn't have like Scott's name is on this, so obviously it gets eyeballs. I did a project called Reign of Dracula as the
Mhm.
publisher. That was it's the third. It's like the third installment of a much longer series written by Rich Davis that was originally Cult of Dracula and then Rise of Dracula through Source Point Press. That did fairly well in stores, and my goal there was I wanted to publish it. I love Rich. I wanted to work with Rich on a project, and I thought it would bring more eyeballs into my
Yeah.
purview. And so I kind of, and then I did the Grizzly Crew, which is like a group of anthropomorphic bears who are also pirates that like fight scarier pirates. It's a kid's story. So I really in the first, it's about a year I've been doing this now,
Mhm.
and I really, one, spread myself too thin, and two, spread myself too wide. I did like a horror thing and this anthology series. Cicada
Mhm.
Samurai is like, I don't even know how like, it's like a samurai Ninja Turtle-y kind of story,
Sure. Yeah.
but like a little darker and more violent, has like a manga kind of anime
Yeah.
violence to it. And then
Yeah.
it's like a kid story that I'm writing with my 9-year-old, my 8-year-old. So like, I don't have a brand that makes any sense to myself or to anybody yet. Um, so I think what I'm doing now is I'm taking everything I've learned for the last year and I'm going to try and figure out, okay, what is the thing I want to focus on? How do I want to carry this thing going forward? And how do I organize my life so that I can have a new issue of Cicada Samurai, ready to go every three months or so.
Okay. That's awesome.
That's the one. That's one of the ones I want to focus on for sure. And then I have a couple of other projects brewing that I want to start next year
Sure. That's
that
awesome.
are more in that vein.
Well, sir, I'll be respectful of your time. Anything else you want to plug? Anything else you want to call out? Where can folks find you online?
So I'm at Thorny Comics, on the Twitter or whatever he's calling it these days, on Instagram. I think I'm the only Thorny Comics on Facebook. I have a page there. The big thing that I do is I'm trying to organize all my comic book stuff around my Substack, which is jerrycarita.substack.com. And I barely, honestly, like, I'm not a spammer, so
Yeah.
you get at most in one email from me a week. Usually it's less frequent; it's more like a week and a half, 2 weeks. Movie reviews. I actually went to the place that prints my comics, Comic Impressions, down in Florida. I toured the facility and I posted a bunch of photos and stuff, and that was a lot of fun. And I recommend a lot of other books that are out there. There's another book I will plug. Justin Gray, who has been on Kickstarter for a long time. He's like been instrumental in my Kickstarter knowledge and journey, and I text him random questions all the time. He's had a bunch of books on there. He did a book called Billy the Kid. He did a book called Hope, the more recent one. And he's doing a book now called No Easy Way Out. It's also on Kickstarter live right now. It'll be over in about a week. And everyone should buy everything that he does. He's a great writer, and like, it's a beautiful book. So I
That's
want to plug
awesome.
that for my buddy.
Cool.
That's it.
Well, in addition to
That's
a
fine.
plug, you got 8 days left to go back this project. So please get out there, folks, and join Kickstarter. And that is as of the 19th of August. Well, thank you very much, Jerry. It's always good to have you on the cast. Please come back. Please move with Cicada Samurai. The next issue comes out. Please come back. Let's
I
talk
will,
more. Of
absolutely. Thanks, Justin.
course. All right. See you, everybody.